Next-Door Neighbors, Somali is made possible by the support of the Nissan Foundation, the HCA Foundation on behalf of HCA and the TriStar family of hospitals, by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by members of Nashville Public Television.
America is known as a land of opportunity, where through hard work, a person can make a better life for themselves and their family. For new destination cities like Nashville, Tennessee, the expectation of opportunity is extended to an increasing number of immigrants and refugees who find almost immediate access to jobs in the city's relatively stable economy. But for the immigrant and refugee communities living in Nashville, access to jobs is only one step towards achieving a prosperous future. Many desire education opportunities, want to learn English, to live in a safe environment, and build a thriving community rooted in the values and traditions of their culture. Some have attained all of these goals. Others face barriers too insurmountable and leave. In southeast Nashville, a coffee shop is bustling with the conversations of several young Somali men. In between work and other commitments, they gather here to talk about politics, life, or the latest soccer game. The simply named Somali Coffee Shop is a hub for Somali life in Nashville.
If you're Somali, if you came to this coffee shop, you will know what happened to the community in Nashville, what's going on in Nashville, in the country, and back home. This is the information center.
Abdi Shakur Muhammad lives close by the Somali coffee shop and is a regular customer.
You know, this history follow this coffee and sitting together and talking together. You know, back home in Somalia, our fathers, our grandfathers, in the afternoon, all the elders, they come together, talk about what's good for the community. They drink, they talk, they play, you know, cards. And during that time, communication system was really bad. It's not like today, whereby you can rely on TV, on telephone. The only way that they can know what is going on is to sit that place, listen what folks are saying, what is going on in the community.
After they've had an espresso or tea and perhaps a sambusa pastry, many of these men will go on to work overnight at factories, warehouses, or operate taxis around the city. But the time spent in the coffee shop is where life feels like it was back home. In Somalia, a land which has existed without a functioning government since 1991, the social networks of families and clans have provided one of the few sources of stability. But the civil war that has plagued Somalia is also rooted in clan-based inequalities. In Nashville, Somalis are deeply connected to one another through traditional social structures and common experiences.
We have a very strong community here. Somalis in Nashville have been, very connected to each other, I would say. I think it's that we have attempt to reconnect with the experience we had back home and try to make a core family unit that was destroyed by the Civil War and the resettlement process. Just to give you an idea, most of my family are from Mogadishu. We have a huge family. Now in Nashville, we don't have any immediate family. The closest family we have is our second cousin. So our family is right now spread throughout Africa, Europe, Asia, United States, Canada. You start to develop different family relationships. Somalis have a very unique naming tradition. It's linked to our family lineage. So my first name is my given name, and my second and third name are my father and my grandfather's name. I know 19 of my names. Each one of them is an ancestor of mine. My full name technically would be Salat Abdul Qadir Nur Salat Takr Jama or Sami Adam Mahad Farah Shuru Agal Jabil Ishaq Umar Muhammad Salam Muhammad Ibrahim. That's roughly several hundred years of our tradition that I'm able to relate to. If you meet a new person and that person knows their lineage relatively well, it's easy for you to find out. Maybe you have been separated for several hundred years, but you still know how you're related to each other.
If somebody comes to this country, the first question they ask is, are there Somalis living there? Because regardless of their clan relationship, they still rely on each other. That's a fact. You always see Somalis living in the same neighborhood, and they depend on each other when it comes to transportation, childcare, and so many other issues.
most Somali refugees undertook a long and winding journey to finally arrive in Nashville, Tennessee. As the Civil War began in 1991, many families fled across international borders to Kenya, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Yemen, and were placed in refugee camps with tenuous living conditions. Those who were fortunate to leave Somalia before the war broke out also found themselves stranded once the government collapsed.
We left Somalia 3 months before the Civil War. At that point, we could see that the security situation was getting worse. And so my family decided that it was better to go away and stay in Egypt for about a year, come back when things settled. Once the war started, there wasn't a government, and therefore our passports had no value. So we were stuck in Egypt for 10 years. When you are a refugee, one of the things, aside from losing a country, you lose that sense of, stability, familiarity with your surroundings and the people. You miss that kind of predictability about life and your expectations of how your life was going to turn out. When we found out that we had a chance to come here, we were like, okay, that's great. At least I can find a job, I can start somewhere. And it's a resettlement program, which means that eventually I get to become a citizen and I become part of the society.
Less than 1% of the world's refugees find permanent resettlement in countries like the United States. Those selected for U.S. resettlement receive initial support funded by the U.S. Department of State and administered by volunteer agencies like Catholic Charities and World Relief. Federal refugee assistance lasts 6 months and is focused on creating economic self-sufficiency for refugees. Many Somalis also came to Nashville from other cities in the U.S., attracted by the city's manageable size, moderate climate, and job opportunities.
We chase the work. If somebody says that there's a lot of warehouse jobs in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, big folks will move.
Somalis come from an oral society with nomadic traditions, and Somali communities across the U.S. routinely share information about living conditions and greater opportunities for themselves and their families. When Abdul Qadir Gure first arrived in Seattle, Washington, he wasn't satisfied with his situation there, so he moved.
I consulted with my uncle who lived at that moment in California, and then he said, try Nashville. It was like the afternoon. 8 p.m. I went online to check up for a ticket for Graham bus. Then I was in the bus like maybe 11 o'clock. I think it was like around 58 hours sitting in a bus, and somehow it was fun, but man.
As young Somalis are attracted to Nashville for job opportunities, older Somalis find life in Nashville more difficult and sometimes decide to leave. As a result, the majority of Somalis in Nashville are working-age adults and their children.
Nashville is a good place for young people because, a lot of other places don't have as much of a manufacturing industry. But at the same time, for older people, it's hard to find many people of the older generation, like for my grandmother. So she feels kind of like a little bit isolated. Minneapolis, we have a big Somali community. It's an older community. If we went there, for example, my parents would have health care. My grandmother would have a bigger social network. But at the same time, I like it here. I have my house, I have my job. But, it's a conversation that we have, on and off. At some point, we might decide to move.
While most working-age Somalis find employment in Nashville, Somali refugees under the age of 18 are enrolled in public education. New students are placed in grade levels based on age, not ability.
I became United States in 1999. I was 17. I went to the public school, Stratford High School, and started from 9th grade.
Somalia's public education system collapsed along with the government in 1991. The educational background of the Somali community is diverse, depending on age, the financial situation of families prior to the Civil War, and which country Somalis fled to as refugees. Many Somalis who fled into neighboring countries found themselves in refugee camps with no access to schools. An entire generation of Somalis lost hope for an education. Those like Medina who were resettled to the U.S. with at least a chance to enter the public school system were vastly underprepared for their grade level.
I don't have any background English at all. The teacher and the students and everybody speaking, English, and me only one different. My language is different. How I look like is different. My clothes is different. Feel like I'm in hell.
Medina's frustration continued at home. Her family encouraged her to stay in school, but they were unable to help her with her homework because they didn't speak English either.
First year was worst year. It was just horrible. Teacher say, answer the question, I just guess. You guess this is wrong. I know it's wrong, but I don't know the right answer.
During her first year at Stratford High School, Medina began to pick up English, but many of Medina's friends, other Somali refugees like her, were beginning to drop out.
They say, Medina, you're crazy. We need to get out here before we waste our time. We have to go work and make little money maybe to buy a car or something like that. They just drop out. I always want to be somebody, be a teacher, be a doctor. I just realized if you don't get diploma, you're never ever gonna be anything. Never ever gonna be in college and university because you don't have diploma. That's the key.
Medina began to improve in school. She found 2 teachers who took her under their wing.
One was my math teacher and my English teacher. My math teacher, her name is Miss Whitfield. She was in Medina. I'm gonna help you. Come my lunch time, my free time. After school, stay. If you don't have transportation, I will take you home. Then I stay after school until 6 o'clock.
Medina studied hard for the next 2 years, staying after school, even visiting Mrs. Whitfield on the weekends. But when it came time to take the required high school exit exams, she didn't score high enough to graduate.
I just took the test and I passed the math. But English I failed, and I just give up and say, that's it.
Balancing religious and cultural life within the structure of the workplace has been another challenge for some Somalis. In Shelbyville, Tennessee, Somalis working at the local Tyson Foods plant made national headlines as they struggled to maintain their obligatory daily prayers in the workplace. Somali workers also wanted to secure leave for the 2 most important religious holidays. These challenges, along with the diminishing number of industry jobs, have pushed some to find other employment.
I had my decision when I come to United States. I was looking for what is the job that can give me or could give me the highest freedom that I can get. When I come here, the first buddy who picked me up from the ground bus was a Somalian cab driver. He was telling me about the business, how things work, and how is this city, and how I can even get the permit. After 2 or 3 months, I ended up, though it's so risky, driving taxi. One of the positive things is that people are rushing to drive taxi. First, you have the freedom. The freedom to work how many hours you like, or go to the mosque and pray, or even like chit-chat with your friends. Another thing is that all Muslims believe that the business is blessed. So everybody driving taxi just hit the road and depend on God, Maybe that day you will collect less, and maybe the second day will end up more. And other thing that the tax business have is most of the Somalian community, they are paycheck to paycheck, even if they are working at the warehouse, because they are supporting big families back home. If you are at the warehouse job, if he or she sent the paycheck of the last week, and the other paycheck is maybe 2 weeks from now on, it will not be easy to get the money that you are in urgent at that moment. Driving taxi is, you have been called last night, and then in the morning, depend on gonna hit the road, and you might collect maybe $50, or you're so lucky that you might collect $100, and instead of paying like even the gas or the insurance, go to the hawala and send the money.
What most Somalis casually refer to as the Hawala network is actually an informal money transfer system built on trust and rooted in Islamic law dating back more than 1,000 years. In Somalia, there is no federal banking system and no formal money transfer businesses exist. But through the informal transfer network, Somalis across the globe send an estimated $1 billion back home each year. Today, the network has been modernized to meet U.S. and international banking regulations. Sending money is simple, efficient, and inexpensive. Someone enters a Nashville agency seeking to transfer money overseas. The money transfer agent receives the money and contacts another agent in the destination city. Then, after confirming that the money in Nashville has been received, the destination agent gives the prescribed amount to the recipient. The entire process can take as little as 15 minutes.
Everybody here is supporting somebody back home because Somalia is a war-torn country, and most people live off money they receive from overseas. The money we're sending back home is the backbone of the economy in Somalia.
In our business, we see a full picture of the community. We see the elderly, we see the young just from high school, we see people working in sometimes maybe 2 or 3 shifts, sending money back to their family in Somalia. They don't have a choice because they got called, mother is sick, mother is, cousin is sick, cousin is hungry. Without that, they will not survive. Sometimes people send the money to Somalia before they eat. I know some people that in this city that skip meals so they can save that money to send back to Somalia. You cannot think about saving or maybe keeping some money in your pocket or in your bank account. As long as the security situation there is this bad, I'm not really sure if we will have any good chance of having maybe any kind of improvement here for the community. I'm not really sure.
While Somali taxi drivers have found one way to earn money that can be tailored to their culture, there are disadvantages. In the summer of 2007, many Somali drivers joined a taxicab association formed in Nashville to address issues from the lack of driver health care to unregulated fees paid to cab companies. Taxi drivers are also concerned about crime and working in dangerous neighborhoods.
The negativity of cab business ranges between, sometimes you can't even bring maybe like $20 or $30 back home for the whole day. And it ends up to a place that you might get killed, and it happened. We lost friends who were driving taxi. Some of them lost parts of their body, and some of them are alive but get shot. And robbery, hatred, discrimination, it happens. That kind of words that we didn't know back home. Back home, you're white or black, it's the same. But here, it become like an issue that it hurts feeling, and it's difficult to be 3 different categories that having trouble here: immigrant, black, and Muslim. Believe me, it's really difficult.
In 2003, a new group of refugees were resettled to Nashville that represented a marginalized population in Somalia. The Somali Bantu had been brought to Somalia as slaves in the 18th and 19th centuries and were excluded from the clan network, political life, and education in Somalia. The majority of Somali Bantu were farmers and come from a culture with no written language. For many Somali Bantu, life in the United States means experiencing schools, driving a car, or even turning on a light switch for the first time.
When I arrived here the first time, I would say, what can I do? This is a new country. I never seen like this before. The city, if you doesn't speak English, it's not easy to make better your life. Bantu, they are poor for education. Because the place we was living, it was not education. All the people here, age 40, when you call them here, no one speaks English.
Many Bantu families are large, with several children and only one parent available for work. In order to find affordable housing and to help with childcare and transportation issues, many Somali Bantu have moved into federally subsidized neighborhoods. In these neighborhoods, Somali Bantu are able to help each other with daily needs.
The family size 9, family size 10, family size 11. All the children just one person working. The job he's working almost is a $7, $8. He want to pay gas, he want to pay electric, phone, insurance, rent. That's a lot of money. My job, I work in Target. I work in overnight because daytime I have to help the people.
There has been evidence that Somali and Somali Bantu living in public housing have been targeted victims of crime. Somali community leaders have encouraged residents to seek safer housing, but many are reluctant to leave because they can't afford to, and they depend on each other for survival.
Bantus, they want to go to live another place, a better place. But the problem is they don't have able to move. If you will go to live another apartment, you can get evicted. Because if you don't pay rent, you're out.
While Somali Bantu parents rarely have any formal education, their children are enrolled in public schools, are learning English, and adapting to American culture.
When I came here, I started to think the place I was living, it was the wrong place. It was a wrong place. But today, education is coming in my home. My son, he started to speak English in home.
Awareness of crime and the struggles of youth in schools have encouraged leaders in the Somali community to help find activities for their young adults. Isa Muhammad has helped unify Somali, Somali Bantu, and other youth through one source of passion.
Soccer is very important in Somali culture. It's a dream for every kid, to be a soccer professional.
When Isa Muhammad started the competitive Somali soccer team 4 years ago, he had several goals in mind.
When I started coaching this team and putting together this team, most of the kids were from the same high school, Stratford, in Shelby area. And some of them were struggling. And in the neighborhood where they live may be dangerous for them. So keeping them on a soccer field outside their neighborhood, that's one of my goals. And soccer is like any other sport, it has its rules, and you have to take the responsibility of your action. It's all about challenge. And I told them, the challenge is every day.
While the team's name is the Tennessee Somali Stars, not all the players are Somali.
The Somali culture is based on clan. The roots of the problem in Somalia, they can use whatever excuse they wanted, but it's all about how to be the leader of the clan. And I don't want the kids to have the same kind of mentality. Keeping a Somali team only with Somali players wasn't helpful. So we have some players from Nigeria and Sudan, Ethiopia, but the fact that I interact with the other players was important for me and for them, because now they know they can be in a diverse community and do their part.
For some players in the Tennessee Somali Stars, competitive soccer offered their first experience of success in the United States. Last spring, the Stars traveled to Ohio to compete in a tournament with Somali teams from across North America.
When we started, nobody knew that we have a team here. In Minnesota, in Ohio, in Canada, there are group soccer teams. And this kid said, hey, can we be like them? He said, yes, it just depends on us, how we work hard. And Somali people in North America organize a big tournament in Ohio. And they take the best teams from Toronto, Canada, from all the way from Seattle, Washington to Virginia, Atlanta, Minnesota. And we won that tournament. So we became from unknown team to beat. And the kids know that, and they're really proud of it.
For some members of the team, their success on the field and in school has led to college acceptance and even scholarships.
That's my ultimate goal, make them, even if they don't play in college, at least make them go to college and finish school and help the rest of the community, because the Somali community is a community in transition.
There is a growing awareness of the importance of education for the future of the Somali community in Nashville. Medina Hussein, who came to Nashville at age 17, entered high school and was unable to pass her high school exit exams, felt drawn to go back to school and graduate.
One day I called Miss Woodfield. She said, hey Medina, why you don't come back to school? I said, I just give up. She said, don't give up, just come back. Medina, you make this grade last time, you're gonna pass. And she gave me the date we taking the test. She said, come back this day. Before that day, you can come every day afternoon with me in the classroom. I can help you. And when the test came, then I stayed taking the test, reading again. Each paragraph I'm like 5 times. The final tap, the bell's ring, she said, time's up. I just gave the teacher the test, just left.
On her 5th attempt, Medina finally passed her high school exit exams. She had graduated.
I was so excited. I feel like I graduated from university. I understand more than anybody because I was in that situation. I know it's hard, I know that, but you have free school, free teacher, free bus, maybe free food. This is your chance. Take it.
For many Somalis, surviving in Nashville has been about work, making money, sending whatever they can back home, and getting by. Education has often played a secondary role or been out of reach.
I saw a lot of people in need that they are either in warehouse job or taxi business. So I decided to come up with an idea that I might push my friends and some other folks so that they can try to educate themselves and get a better life with their education. I remember the first meeting that we held, people were asking that question again and again, what should we do, how we can help each other? So we come up with the idea of starting a tutoring program.
In the summer of 2008, Abdul Qadir partnered with the Somali Community Center of Nashville to help organize the program and Al Farouk Mosque to find a space on afternoons and weekends. The teachers are all volunteers, mostly Somali students at local universities. There are no books, no financial resources, no curriculum, but the program is tightly focused.
First is math and English, because they are the basic 2 subjects in order to take any test. This is a small project, and we are not kidding ourselves and say, well, we're going to teach all the Somalis who are here. That's not something we can do. But this is just a start. Let us do one thing at a time. And eventually, when this becomes hopefully successful, others will join. Are we competent enough to teach? Maybe not. Some of us have never been teachers, maybe in their lives, but I think it's worth it.
Right now, if we educate ourselves and our young generation, we can set the bar for them. Right now, maybe 5% going to college, and the rest divided between warehouses and taxi driving or truck driving. If we set the bar high and say, can we make maybe around, I can't say 100%, but 50%, maybe next 2 or 3 years, maybe the next generation will say, yes, this is what we can do, and finally they can catch up with this fast-moving life in America, which is the final goal. How we can take the positive and drop the negative, and then be part of the community, the big moving community.